Hi YouTube, I am Funky Raccoon and I'm currently on my quest to completing Hollow Knight's Silksong 100%. In the last episode of this series, I left off just before the final boss and decided I wanted to take a look around the map to see everything I had missed in the second act of this game. And at first I thought it would have just been a quick trip around the map, but oh boy was I wrong. Turns out this game is massive, and so here's everything I, and probably you, have missed in the second act of the game. But before going on with the video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. But anyway, I decided to start at Belhart, where Pavo decided he wanted me to live there, and so he gave me the keys to my new Bell home. God, I wish this happened to me in real life. But anyway, after quickly checking my new home, I decided I wanted to explore around the slab, as I hadn't fully explored it when I was kidnapped and brought there. And to my surprise, I found out that just to the left of the bellway, there's a whole new area. There's this big icy mountain called Mount Fay, which is really just a big climb to the top of the mountain, and this was a really hard platforming section all the way to the top. The platforming itself wasn't so bad, but the fact that the weather was so cold meant that I was constantly on a timer, and if I started freezing, I would probably die instantly. But anyway, after a while I managed to reach the top of the mountain, and I was greeted by this big bird. After shitting my pants, thinking this was a boss fight, he decided he loved me for some reason, and he gave me the Fade Down Cloak, which protects you from the cold, but most importantly, allows me to double jump. And this was great as it opened up so many new options around the map. And with my newfound power, the first place I decided to check was at the Blasted Steps, where I found Grindo, the thief, which is now a merchant, and you should totally check him out as he sells a lot of cool stuff. Right after that, I went to the Weavnest where I found the snare setter, and while wandering around the map, I found the Flea Caravan, and they decided to move right at the entrance of the Grand Gate. While I was there playing with the fleas, I remembered that there was this ledge inside the halfway home that I couldn't reach before, so I quickly went there and found a memory locket inside. After that, I decided to finally explore around the Bilewater. I had already been here, but since I didn't have the double jump, I couldn't reach Chakra, and so this time I quickly made my way to her and bought the map. And oh boy, was this a big area. I didn't expect that, and also let me tell you, this is the hardest area in the whole game. Everything here is working against you. Enemies hit you from afar and hide as soon as you reach them. The few enemies you can consistently kill explode upon that. There's tons of traps, and even the water is trying to kill you here. After a few minutes of struggles, I eventually found a bench, and I was so relieved just to be then deceived by the game, as this turned out to be a fake bench, which almost led to my death. After a few more minutes spent exploring, I eventually found a secret wall that led me to a real bench this time. Anyway, as big as this area is, there really isn't anything worth looking for. Aside from a mask shard, and just at the end of the area, I was greeted by Growl, this big chunky guy, which not only you have to fight, I think it was 5 enemy waves before actually meeting the guy, and that was every time you came back after you died to this guy. It was also a really hard boss fight, mostly because his hitbox is so big, and trying to maneuver around him while also trying not to fall in that nasty stinky water was a real pain in the ass. But anyway, I eventually managed to beat him, and I was rewarded with the Seeker's Soul, which is a required item if you wish to go into the third act of the game. Just beside him, I also found the Apostasy key and the Huntress, which is this big spider lady, which gave me the Brood Feast quest. Now, with my newfound key, I decided I wanted to explore around the slab, and there I found another mask shard, a Weaver effigy, and this strange cage which was held down by some chains. I smashed these chains just to be greeted by another boss fight, the first Sinner. Now this might look like a hard and chaotic boss fight, but it was surprisingly really easy. I think it took me just 2 or 3 tries to be there, and I was rewarded with the Rune Rage skill, which looks really strong, but I never really had a chance to try it out, and you'll see why later. After that, I had another quick trip around the prison, and I found another secret area with a memory locket inside. After that, I decided to explore around the citadel, where I found the Green Prince, but I don't know, he was just standing there and he didn't tell me anything at the time, so whatever. And right after finding him, I also found Garman and Zaza fighting in a corridor. Oh, they look so valorous. Right beside them, I unlocked this elevator with the white key, which I had found in a previous episode. This elevator leads to the White Ward area. Here I found a locked mechanism and also a neutral commandment, which was followed by a jump scare from this enemy that I had never seen before, and I wished I would never see again. But anyway, I kept exploring, and I also found a Silky there, the map of the area, and then I found a secret wall that leads to the Surgeon key, which I will need later to open the mechanism I had found before, and the Injector Band, which has become a staple in my loadout as it allows me to bind much faster. Later I found another secret wall, which led to the Underworks, where the Architect Merchant is. But sadly I couldn't go back to the White Ward from the way I just came, so instead I decided to go back to Belheart, where I found a quest from Chakra herself. She wanted me to look for her in the Bilwater area, but I really didn't want to do that at the time, so instead I decided to go to Greymoor, where I had already pinged a place that I needed the double jump to reach. Here at the top left corner of the left tower, and this led me to a new area, the Wisp Thicket. This area has just 2 types of enemies, these really easy to kill fire mages, and these really scary fire wisps, which follow you around and deal a lot of damage. Anyway, here I found a path to the Underworks, another craft metal, and the Father of the Flame boss fight, where I sadly died. After coming back, I found out that there's a bench here, which I could unlock by breaking whatever this is. I also found another bone scroll and another mask shard. I then went back to the Father of the Flame boss fight, and let me tell you, this was a really hard boss fight. The boss itself doesn't even move, but you have to find a way to jump around and hit this lantern, while also trying to avoid all of the wisps that come chasing after you. And the worst part is that when you hit them, you don't recharge your silk, meaning that after binding just once or using one skill, that's it, and you're left with no silk. It took me a few tries, but in the end I managed to beat him, and I was rewarded with the Wisp Fire Lantern. I tried using it, but I didn't really understand how it worked, so I never used it again. Back at the halfway home, I misclicked and talked to the merchant, which turned out to be a really good thing, because he told me that he was selling the vintage nectar, which is needed for the gourmand quest. He told me to go and pick the nectar from the cellar, but I was greeted by waves upon waves of ant enemies. And after defeating all of them, I finally managed to retrieve my nectar. After that I decided I wanted to go back to Bilwater to complete Chakra's quest. Her tracks took me on a full trip around Bilwater again, and eventually led me to a new area that I somehow hadn't found before. And this area was really beautiful. It had crystal walls, waterfalls, clear water, but what I found inside wasn't as beautiful, as I was greeted by this sad scene of Chakra mourning for her master. So we decided to play a song for the master's funeral, and later she decided to give me her rings. As I was already close, I decided that it was time to explore around the mist. I had already been here, but when I first came here I didn't understand how I was supposed to explore this area. And the best part is that I still had no idea how I was supposed to go around this area. So I just wandered randomly for about 10 minutes until I eventually found something That something is the exhaust organ, which is this really big tower in which you can enter, and as soon as you enter, you're immediately greeted with a bench. Oh, thank God. I quickly explored the area just to find a silk eater and a secret wall with an exit to the top of the tower. And just a few platforms away, I found a flea. Back inside the tower, I found the phantom boss fight. This was a really easy boss fight, as his attack patterns were exactly the same as Lay's. I don't know if this has some lore implications or if the devs just copy-pasted the animations, but thanks to this fact, this boss fight was really easy, and when I finally beat him, I was greeted with this really cool scene. He also gave me the cross-stitch skill, which is basically just the same parry he, Lace and some other enemies in the game use. And let me tell you, this is extremely useful, as whenever you find yourself in a pitch, you can just press RB and parry any attack in the game, becoming completely immortal for a few seconds and also lashing back at the attacker. I will use this skill a lot later in the game. But anyway, beside the Phantom, I was surprised to find another entrance to the Citadel, but I had already explored the Citadel, so I went back outside the tower, and to the left there's a path that leads to the Sinner's Road. Speaking about the Sinner's Road, there was this area here that needed a double jump to be reached, and inside this area I met the Chef Lugoli boss fight. Chef Lugoli? Chef Lego boss fight. This was also a really easy boss fight, and for defeating him I was rewarded with a pickled Maggot, which was another ingredient needed for the Gourmand quest. While wandering around, I also found a secret wall that led to Styx. You know, the big spider guy which farms silk eaters for you? And since I now had every ingredient for the Gourmand quest, I decided it was time for the Courier's Rusher quest. This was such a hassle, as the rusher you're given, the package you're trying to bring to the Citadel, loses some durability every time you're hit, and also keeps losing durability over time even if you're not being hit, which meant that I had to go all the way from Belhart to the Citadel on foot while being careful of not being hit, and also while trying to go as fast as possible before it perished. It took me a few tries, but eventually I managed to bring it to the Citadel, where I traded all of the ingredients for another pale oil, which allowed me to upgrade my needle further. And let me tell you, I could really feel the upgrade this time. I then decided to complete some other courier's quests when I found the Moorwing boss fight. Here I was carrying a package, and since the boss hit me a few times, I sadly lost the package, but I still managed to beat him on my first try. Piece of shit didn't even give me anything. On my way back to Belhart, I found Chakra's ring. So I called her, and she now wants to fight? Oh, let me tell you, this fight was extremely hard. It was not unfair, but Chakra is extremely fast, she can teleport around, she shoots at you from afar, and the few times she does a melee attack, it's also an AoE attack, meaning that you have to be extra careful of it. This took me a lot of time, but eventually I managed to beat her, just to be rewarded with nothing. After you defeat her, she just tells you, hey, let's fight again. And of course I told her to go and fuck off. And so instead, I decided to go and take the Queen's Egg quest, where I needed to bring this egg to Styx, which will be really easy thanks to the shortcut I had just found. After delivering it, Styx upgrades her nest, meaning that now she gives you 2 silk eaters at a time instead of 1. This was a really nice upgrade. And now for the last courier quest, the Liquid Lacquer, which needed to be delivered to Mount Fae, to the mask maker, which I had already found. And I tried a few times, but this was really hard as I could only take 3 hits, and so I decided to go to Sunclave instead to see what was new. And there I found a request from Sherma. The love of my life was in danger. I had to save her. I rushed my way to the White Ward and found a few thugs threatening her, so I quickly beat them all and saved the love of my life. Don't worry, my love, you're fine now. And while I was in the White Ward, I remembered I had a key to the mechanism down here, and so I unlocked it But before launching myself down, I decided to check what's under the elevator. If you're having trouble with this part, you need to bring the elevator all the way down, then you have to make it all the way to the top on foot and call the elevator, and while the elevator is coming up, you need to launch yourself down and make it to this ledge on the left, wait for the elevator to go past you, and then you can check what's below the elevator. You can find a spool shard there. After that, I decided to launch myself into the void, opened up by this mechanism, and there I was greeted by a new boss. This guy doesn't even have a name, but let me tell you, he was really unfair. It didn't take me long to beat him, but this hitbox is just so big and the arena you fight him in is so small that it's almost impossible to not get hit. Anyway, it took me just a few tries and I managed to defeat him, and it didn't give me anything, but it unlocked a path to the right where I found a new psalm cylinder, and I also found out that I was right about workers being scammed here in the Citadel. You see, in a previous episode, I found this confessional area where you could pay to confess your sins, and this robotic voice would answer me, telling me that I had sinned and that I needed to repent by working more and harder. And at the time I said, this doesn't seem right, and now I can finally say I was right, as it turns out that the one telling me that I had sinned was just this robot that I have now smashed. But anyway, with this secret uncovered, I had to go and check out on Sherma. I had to make sure she was fine and that she made it back to Songclave in one piece. Luckily she made it back to Songclave without any problems, and while exploring around here, I found this new area, the Memorium, which is basically a big greenhouse. In there, I found a giant stag beetle that I had found 20 or so hours before. I made a quick work of him and he just gave me a beast shard. I wonder how we even managed to get all the way from the far fields to the Citadel. But anyway, I also found another mossberry, which would have turned out to be the last one I needed, and another cog heart piece. This was also the last one I needed, as I now had a complete cog heart. I also found a new memory locket and the last Ventrica station I was missing. I also found this electric path, which led to a Materium? I had no idea what this was at the time, but I also found a secret wall which led me to a bolt vessel, a really strong tool that I would have later used. I also found this giant flea which unexpectedly turned against me and turned into a boss fight. That was really scary actually, as because of his big hitbox, it would be really hard not to take damage. But I still managed to beat him on my first try, and turns out he went back to the flea caravan. I then followed this really hard platforming section that eventually led me to a spool shard. I think I found everything here in the Memorium, and so I went and tried the liquid lacquer quest again. In the end, I managed to deliver it, but sadly, this quest doesn't seem to give you anything useful aside from some rosaries. And speaking about rosaries, I then remembered that there was a rosary room in the high halls at the Citadel, which I still had to check. And so I went in there, and as expected, I just found a bunch of rosaries, plus a rosary cannon, which I would also never use. I also found another flea, and while I was in the high halls, I remembered that there was a part on the top that I had never checked, and there I found another spool shard. I also remembered that there was something to craft around here, so I looked for it and crafted the cogfly, which will turn out to be a really strong and really useful tool. If you haven't crafted it already, I really suggest you go and craft it. They're really strong. As I was close, I decided to take a look around the cogwork core, and there I found a new path in which I had never been, and in there I found this robot in which I could insert my now complete cog art. So I did that, and this guy took to life. He quickly spoke to me, but he just flew away. I would later find him wandering around the corridors in the Citadel. Phew, that was a lot of talking, and this brings us to the end of this video. Now, I know I still missed something, but I think that everything I have missed, I have then later found in the next videos, which still have to come out. And so if you're missing something, stay tuned for the next videos, where we'll find the rest of the items we're missing. They won't be many, but hey, they're still missing, and so be sure to hit that bell button so that you'll be notified when the next videos come out, and also be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It will really help me a lot. And with that said, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and see you in the next videos, where I'll find everything else I'm missing. Bye!